Hello guys, Crispy and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing the Nvidia GeForce RTX 3070 laptop GPU in Spider Man Remastered. The laptop that I'm testing is the Asus ROG Strix G17 from 2021 with a Ryzen 9 5900HX processor and 16GB of RAM. I am using an external monitor right here, but it's connected through HDMI, so it's not bypassing Optimus, unfortunately, in this particular laptop. You gotta use USB-C for that, and I can't use that with my capture card. We're using the turbo mode over here in Armory Crate, as you can see, which is actually overclocking the GPU by 100 MHz on the core clock and 150 MHz on the memory clock. Finally, you can see all of the GPU specs right here in Tech PowerUp's GPU Z. It has 8GB of GDDR6 memory, 5120 CUDA cores, and let's get right into it, shall we? Alright, first of all, let's go through the settings. Oh my gosh, that's really tiny. That's not what she said, guys. 1080p resolution to start this off, and we're also going to test this one at 1440p and 4K resolutions. We're using no upscaling method for now, but we're also going to test DLSS, of course. TAA anti-aliasing is being utilized at the moment with the very high settings preset. Alright, at 1080p there is no point of testing DLSS, by the way, because this is already a CPU-bound scenario, so enabling DLSS will only make things look different, maybe a little bit sharper actually, but it won't get us more FPS, unfortunately, because how it works, it will only give you more FPS if the GPU utilization is at 100%, and that's not the case right here. It's hovering around like 80% usage or so. Yeah, as you probably know by now, this game is extremely CPU intensive, guys, and that Optimus, Nvidia Optimus being enabled is not really helping it a whole lot here with this particular laptop, unfortunately, but hey, at least at higher resolutions we should be GPU bound anyways, and it should be an extremely good experience. It is already an extremely good experience, honestly. And honestly, guys, since the last video I made in Spider Man Remastered, I played it for a little bit. You can see that the time of the day is different than usual, and I played it in this laptop with a controller and still have a lot of fun, guys, okay? So it doesn't really matter if it drops into the 50s here and there in more like CPU intensive scenarios, for example looking at the entire city, because it's still a very good experience, especially if you play with the controller. So that's it. I'm actually gonna go to the Central Park area now because it's more GPU intensive there. Maybe we're gonna see like 100% GPU usage there. This time of the day, sunset, wow, absolutely gorgeous here in Spider Man Remastered. Please just do something. What the hell? I was just falling there. Alright, reflections are looking pretty alright as well, although they are not ray traced, obviously. But if you want ray traced reflections, you are out of luck here with this particular setup, because it is going to be extremely CPU demanding. For some reason in this game, the ray tracing just wrecked CPU performance. Even my Ryzen 9 5900X processor on the desktop side of things struggled a little bit to maintain everything above 60 FPS at all times. I think it dropped slightly in some scenarios, so that's how intensive ray tracing is on the CPU in this game. It's also very intensive on the GPU, of course. But yeah, it's an alright experience overall. Very, very playable for sure, and super enjoyable. So let's stop it there. And again, I am not gonna enable DLSS at 1080p, it's just gonna be the same thing. So let's go up to 1440p right away, and I will actually need to restart the game. Alright, here we go, 2560 by 1440, still the same thing. I actually needed to restart the PC this time. Usually I only need to restart the game to fully apply the settings, but it was stuttering like crazy, and I remember yesterday I've been playing this game for a little bit, and it didn't stutter whatsoever, and I played at 1440p, so it made no sense. So let's start counting our FPS, okay? And you can see that the GPU utilization is finally at 99% usage, so no CPU bottlenecks anymore. This is fully what the RTX 3070 is capable of. It's a GPU bottleneck right now. And also, I forgot to tell you, but this is the 130 watts version of the card. You can see it in the graph right there, of course, on screen display, not the graph. But well, from what I'm seeing here, it seems like the 1440p experience is super super similar to what we saw at 1080p because, again, at 1080p we were CPU bound, and now things have stabilized a little bit and CPU and GPU utilization are more balanced out, you know. Swinging around these buildings is still CPU bound because it's not as GPU intensive as the Central Park area, but it's still getting 60s, so no problem there. 50s now, CPU bound scenario once again. Ooh, massive stutter there. Okay. Wow, that's crazy. Alright, anyway, let's keep on going. I want to see the city from above in that other building. But overall, it's pretty much the same story as 1080p resolution. It's smooth, it's playable, it doesn't stutter too much, although you can actually notice some of the big stutters, you know. But if you're playing with a controller, again, it is a really nice experience here at 1440, and once again, this is how I played the previous mission in this laptop. And we're finally here, pretty much the same thing, because we are CPU bound still. And unfortunately, since we are CPU bound a lot of the times, I don't think enabling DLSS will make that big of a difference once again, even at this resolution. I wish my laptop had a mux switch, actually, guys. That would be great, but nope, doesn't have it. So this is how I have to play this game, okay? I'm sorry, all right? So let's go with DLSS quality now, and I will restart the game to fully apply it. And now with DLSS enabled, it's probably gonna be pretty much the same thing. Let's climb this entire building again and see the FPS from above first, and then go to the central area. In the central area, it should actually be a little bit better than what we saw at 1440 native. And honestly, guys, DLSS here in this game just looks like native resolution. It actually might look a little bit sharper because it gets rid of that annoying TAA, which is really soft in this game, but if you don't use it, it's gonna look terrible with a lot of jaggies. So I guess if you do have an RTX GPU, definitely enable DLSS. And if you're playing at 1440p or higher with another GPU, GTX or an RX card, FSR 2.0 also does a really good job to get rid of the smudginess of TAA and actually sharpening up the image a little bit. So as you can see, it's pretty much the same thing, right? But now the GPU utilization is the same as 1080p. That's basically what changed here, guys. Unfortunately, it still drops from 60 FPS from time to time in very intensive scenarios, looking at a lot of buildings from above. Yeah, in the 50s there. Not the greatest experience once again, but it's still a very playable one, as I told you. Let's go down here now and see those 50s again, I think. At least up there. Yeah, come on. There we go. 50s. Same thing as previously, but now GPU usage goes down to 60% at times. Ooh, massive stutter when looking back there. And 69 on average, look at that. That is amazing. I think we got 67 previously with DLSS, but of course we're taking a different route here and looking in a different direction, so it's not really comparable one-to-one, right? But what we can compare one-to-one is the Central Park area. Are we getting more FPS? I believe we are. We were dropping into the 50s very often here, and even 40s. It still dropped to 40, okay? But yeah, most of the time now it's above 60 frames per second with the GPU not being maxed out. So it gets exactly the same FPS as we saw at 1080p, I think, at this point, even in the Central Park area. So it's gonna be a CPU-bound scenario using DLSS at 1440p. So now let's go to 4K, turn off any DLSS here or upscaling, and let's restart the game to fully apply everything. Is it playable at native 4K? I'm curious. Oh, wow. That's actually really impressive. We're getting around 60 FPS looking at the Central Park area, you know. What the hell? That's really good, actually. Let's start counting our FPS here. Not stuttering, because now we're fully GPU bound, although it still gets some frame time spikes. But now we're finally fully testing the RTX 3070 laptop GPU, and it's quite good. All right, it's not even dropping into the 30s. It dropped to 39 while I was saying that, and it dropped further than that because of the little stutter there, frame time spike, you know. Yeah, I hate those things, but if you lock the FPS to like 40 or 35, it's gonna be a stable experience. It won't stutter as much, at least. It will be stable, basically. But yeah, as you can see, in the most GPU-intensive scenario here in this game, at least that I've come across, and it's easily come across crushable. That's not how you say it. Yeah, it gets 35 plus frames per second, I guess. As you can see, dropping further into the lower 30s at times, but yeah, pretty solid experience. That means that it's gonna be really good if you lock it again to 35 or 30 frames, and it's gonna look better than like a PS5, actually, because the PS5 runs the game at 4K, but it's checkerboard rendering, I believe. From what some of you have told me, it's not really native 4K. This is full native 4K resolution, and it looks gorgeous, super, super sharp and detailed, and it's still well above 30 frames per second at all times. The fact that we can get this kind of performance from a laptop that isn't even the best laptop, you know, is just amazing to me. Really, really like this, guys. This is insane if you want to connect your laptop to your TV, for example, and play with the controller with these FPS. It's gonna be a really solid experience, let me tell you. Very, very enjoyable indeed. Now, looking back at the city, 40s and higher 30s at times, and this is gonna be most intensive scenario. 36, 37, 38. See, what I say by the Central Park area is the most intensive area for the GPU to render, because even while dropping from the sky, if you are GPU bound and you have no bandwidth issues, of course, it will actually drop more in the Central Park area. At 4K, I will use DLSS on balanced, by the way, not quality, because it looks almost the same on balanced and quality. I can't even see shimmering anywhere like this. It looks really good. It looks the same as native resolution, dare I say. I'm using a 27-inch 4K monitor, and I can't really spot the difference, honestly. So, balanced DLSS it is. Let's just restart. Oh, wow. We are getting 60s and 70s now. Pretty much the same as we saw at, like, 1440p and 1080p as well. Because the GPU usage is not really completely maxed out anymore. So we're still CPU bound at 4K using balanced DLSS sometimes. Not all of the times. You can still see the GPU usage going up to like 97+%. But this is pretty similar to what we saw at the lower resolutions in terms of FPS. But in terms of visuals, it is so damn sharper. It's insane, guys. It looks really, really gorgeous like this. Wow, I would definitely choose to play the game on a TV with a laptop like this, with a controller as well, and balanced DLSS. Look at those 69. Oh, not anymore. God damn it. Let's go. Come on, this is always the least enjoyable part of the benchmark run. It takes really long to get up there, and then this happens. Spider bug time. Looking back at the city now, 40s, doesn't drop to like 39 anymore. And it dropped to 36 right here. It seems like we're getting like 10 more FPS than previously by enabling DLSS. And it's still fully GPU bound, at least in these scenarios. So definitely worth enabling it here at the 4K resolution. If you want to, you can actually lock it to 50 or 60 frames per second right now and not feel a lot of slowdowns. And again, if you have Nvidia Optimus disabled, which you should have if you're playing games on your laptop, unless you are lazy and you don't want to do the max switch thing every single time and restart the PC, you know, you're gonna have like 5 more FPS. Not here at 4K, but at the lower resolutions, you're gonna see like 5 to 10 more frames per second, which will actually make a difference, you know? It's the difference between 55 and 60 FPS sometimes, to 60 and 65 instead, which feels a heck of a lot smoother, obviously. And this area, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing, but now the balance between GPU and CPU usage are way better. Okay, a big stutter right there. Always happens here for some reason. Maybe it gotta load something. Central Park area with a lot of vegetation is not dropping from 60 too often. It still drops though, but it is so much better than dropping to the mid-30s, isn't it? And it looks the same on top of that, so yeah. DLSS is just an amazing technology, guys. Really, really love it. Same goes for FSR 2.0, by the way. It is a little bit more noticeable that you're not playing at native resolution, but it still looks really, really similar and close to native res anyways. So now we should probably test it out at 1080p with ray tracing. So you see that It's a huge CPU bottleneck, right? Okay, let's enable that. Hopefully it won't crash. Oh, look at that, 69. We were stuck at 69 FPS there. I want it on very high because it looks way better than high. And it's actually the highest ray tracing setting, as you can see. There's only high and very high, basically. And, ooh, this is really bad. I want to restart, of course. Wow, that's crazy. The desktop GPUs did so much better with ray tracing enabled. Wait a second, but this is still 4K. Yeah, okay. I am so stupid. I thought we were playing at 1080p. But then the graphics looked so good. I don't... Yeah, okay, so it's still balanced DLSS at 4K with ray tracing. Now, this is impressive. Never mind, guys. I was saying, it's not that impressive. But this is really impressive. Wow. If it's not dropping from 30 FPS around here, I doubt it will drop from 30 FPS even dropping from the sky. But if it does, it's only by a few frames per second, and it's only in those scenarios. So you can still play even at 4K with ray tracing enabled. That is absolutely insane. Not 4K native, of course. It's 4K with DLSS on balance, but it looks the same as native, so... What the actual hell? That's insane. Oh, I just remembered, though. This area is one of the least intensive areas with ray tracing. What a roller coaster of emotions. What the hell? Okay. Now, the more intensive areas with the ray tracing are going to be these buildings. Yeah, see that? Dropping to 30 FPS flat right there. Because these have a lot of reflections, of course, and that's obviously very, very intensive for the GPU to render with ray tracing enabled. Yep, but it's not a problem still. I'm surprised it's still not dropping from 30 FPS. Okay, come on. Oh, 29, 27. Oh, yes, the cars are also super intensive because there are a ton of reflections there. Yeah, okay. Well, that's more like it. Right, so this is why I wasn't really going to test it out at 4K with RT, because it's just really, really tough. Let's actually drop it down to 1440p with, like, balanced DLSS. That also looks pretty good still. And with ray tracing, you're gonna need that balanced DLSS. Damn it, it still drops a lot, but we gotta restart it. Okay, so after a restart, 1440p balanced DLSS still looks really crispy actually, and it drops to 30 frames. If you want to lock it to 30, I guess you could have a decent experience still. Yeah, I'm not really seeing it dropping from 30, honestly. I'm curious, if I lock it to 30... I'm locking it in a RivetTuner, by the way. Is it gonna be pretty stable or is it gonna stutter? No, it's pretty damn stable. Look at that. Look at that frame time graph. That's amazing, actually. Wow, it blinked a little bit, didn't it? Interesting. But yeah, guys, if you don't mind the 1440p resolution playing on like a TV or something, and you really want ray tracing and are playing with a controller, I mean, this is really, really good. And also notice the difference that locking the FPS makes to the stuttering. It's so smooth now, the frame time graph. It doesn't even move. Doesn't have a single spike on it. The game was probably made to run capped, you know. That's probably why it stutters a little bit uncapped. But then you cap the FPS and it's amazing. So, wow. Let's go down to 1080p now and use some quality DLSS with ray tracing, because it looks great anyways at 1080p. Restarting the game and disabling the FPS lock right there. Alright, and at 1080p, as I told you, it is super CPU bound. You can see that GPU utilization is not maxed out whatsoever. It's far from it. 70s and 60% usage there, and it's getting 30s and 40s over here. So that's what I was telling you about ray tracing being super CPU intensive at the start of the video or so. Yeah, it really is. Up here it's not as much because you don't have to render all of those reflections on the ground, but if you get down here and see all of them reflections with the cars and stuff, it gets a little bit wrecked. Still very playable though, don't get me wrong, but if ray tracing makes it go from 60 FPS or 70 FPS average to 45, I won't really enable it, okay? Even though the game is still playable with 45, absolutely. Yeah, I just avoid ray tracing in this one. I think that's been it for this video. Thank you very much for watching it. Hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful to you. And as always, love you all. Bye-bye.